live and breathe.
Stanford, why, I haven't seen you since we were together at Boss. I was just about to lunch. Why don't you join me?
I do believe I would. Whatever have you been doing with yourself lately? Last I heard you'd become an army doctor.
True enough. Assistant surgeon attached to the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers in India.
Oh, congratulations. I always knew you'd make good for yourself.
Yes, well, you might feel differently after I finish.
Oh, that sounds ominous. Do tell.
We were sent to Kandahar when the Afghan war broke out.
That doesn't sound too bad.
When I arrived with the other new officers, I was removed from my brigade and attached to the Berkshires.
Berkshires? Weren't they at the Battle of May Wand? I heard the entire brigade was annihilated.
It was bad, but it wasn't that bad. I was struck on the shoulder and rendered senseless. My orderly Murray threw me over a pack horse and delivered me to British lines, or I would have surely perished.
That was a stroke of luck at least. Was the wound really that terrible?
When I was recovering, I was struck down by enteric fever.
Ooh, enteric fever. Nasty stuff. Very common in India, from what I hear.
It is as nasty as they say. For months I languished on the verge of death. When I had recovered, I was so weak and emaciated that a medical board sent me straight back to England.
Poor devil.
Oh, but enough of my misfortune. What about you?
I've taken a teaching job at the university.
Congratulations.
Thanks, old man. It's good to see you again. What are you up to now?
Looking for lodgings. I've been relieved of duty and I'm on half pay, so I'm to solve the problem of finding comfortable rooms at a reasonable price.
That's a strange thing. You're the second man today who's used that expression to me.
And who was the first?
A fellow who was working at the chemical laboratory at the university. He was bemoaning this morning he could find someone not to go halves with him in some nice rooms.
By Jove, if he's looking for someone to share the rooms and expense, I'm the very man. I should prefer to having a partner to being alone.
You don't know Sherlock Holmes yet. Perhaps you would not care for him as a constant companion.
Why? What is there against him?
Oh, I didn't say there was anything against him. He's a little peculiar in his ideas, an enthusiast in some branches of science. He seems like a decent enough fellow.
A medical student, I suppose.
He's up in anatomy, and he's a first-class chemist. But as far as I know, he's never taken any medical classes. His studies are very eccentric.
But did you ever ask him what he was going in for?
No, he's not a man that is easy to draw out. Though, he can be a decent enough fellow when the time comes to it.
I'd like to meet this friend of yours. If I'm to lodge with anyone, I prefer a man of quiet and studious habits. I am not strong enough yet to stand for much noise or excitement. I had enough of both in Afghanistan to last me the remainder of my natural existence. How can I meet this friend of yours?
He's sure to be at the laboratory. He either avoids the place for weeks, or he's working there from morning till night. I'll stop by after luncheon and see if he would agree to meet us at his lodgings.
Certainly.
You must not blame me if you don't get on with him. I know nothing more of him than what I've learned from meeting him occasionally at the university. You proposed this arrangement, so don't hold me responsible.
If we don't get on, it'll be easy to part company.
True enough.
Stanford, it seems to me that you have some reason of washing your hands of the matter. Is this fellow's temper so formidable, or what is it? Don't be mealy-mouthed about it.
It is not easy to express the inexpressible. Holmes is a little too scientific for my taste. It approaches cold-blooded. I could imagine his giving a friend a little pinch of poison, not out of malevolence, you understand, but simply out of the spirit of inquiry, in order to have an accurate idea of the effects. To do him justice, I think he would take to himself with the same readiness. He appears to have a passion for definite and exact knowledge.
But very right, too.
Yes, but it may be pushed to excess. When it comes to beating the cadavers at the dissecting room with a stick, it is certainly taking rather a bizarre shape.
Beating the cadavers?
To verify how far bruises may be produced after death.
And yet you say he is not a medical student.
Heaven knows what the objects of his studies are. You must make your own impressions about him. Now, how about that lunch?
Mr. Stamford, sir. I doubt you'll get much more out of him than a few grunts and a wave of his hand.
We'll just have to risk it.
If he talks to you, tell me about it easily. I already took away his breakfast untouched, and he barely glanced at the luncheon tray left. Mark my words, gentlemen, he'll waste away to nothing if he don't eat.
Thank you, Mrs. Hudson. I'm sure we can take it from here.
I have found it! I have found it! I have found a reagent which is precipitated by hemoglobin and by nothing else.
Dr. John Watson? Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
How are you? You have been in Afghanistan, I perceive.
How on earth did you know that?
Never mind that. The question now is about hemoglobin. No doubt you see the significance of the discovery of mine.
It is interesting chemically, no doubt, but practically.
Why, man, it is the most practical, medical, legal discovery for years. Don't you realize we now have an infallible test for blood stains? Come over here now. Let us have a little fresh blood. Now, I add this small quantity of blood to a liter of water. The resulting mixture has the appearance of pure water. But I have no doubts, however, we shall be able to obtain the characteristic reaction. Ah, yes! What do you think about that?
Seems to be a delicate test.
Beautiful, beautiful. The old test was very uncertain and valueless if the stains were only a few hours old. Had this test been invented, there are hundreds of men now walking the earth who long ago would have paid the penalty for their crimes.
Indeed.
Criminal cases are continually hinging upon that one point. A man suspected of a crime months after it has been committed. Brownish stains are discovered. What are they? Blood stains, rust stains, fruit stains? That is a question that has puzzled many an expert. And why? Because there was no reliable test. Now we have the Sherlock Holmes test. And there will no longer be difficulty.
You are to be congratulated.
Yes, there was a case of one Bischoff last year. He would certainly have been hanged had this test been in existence. There's Mason of Bradford and the notorious Mule of Montpellier. There's a score of cases I can name in which it would be decisive.
You seem to be a walking calendar of crime. Let's start a paper on those lines. Call it Police News of the Past.
Very interesting reading it might be made too.
We have come here on business. My friend here wants to take diggings, and as you were complaining you could get no one to go halves with you, I thought I'd better bring you together.
There's plenty of room here on Baker Street. This should suit two down to the ground. My bedroom's over there, yours would be there. You don't object to the smell of strong tobacco, I hope.
I always smoke chips myself.
That's good enough. I occasionally do experiments, generally have chemicals around. Would that annoy you?
By no means.
Let's see. What are my other shortcomings? I get in the dumps at times, and I don't open my mouth for days on end. You must not think I am sulky when I'm doing that. Just leave me alone, and I'll soon be all right. What have you to confess now? It's just as well the two fellows get to know the worst of one another before they begin to live together.
I keep a bullpup, and I object to rouse because my nerves are shaken. And I get up at all sorts of ungodly hours, and I'm extremely lazy. I have another set of vices when I'm well, but those are the principal ones at present.
Do you include playing violin in your category of rounds?
Depends on the player. A well-played violin is a treat for the gods. A badly played violin is...
Yes. Quite all right. Well, I think we may consider the thing as settled. That is, if the rooms are agreeable to you.
They are.
Excellent! I shall fetch the landlady for the arrangements.
How the deuce did he know that I had come from Afghanistan?
That's just his little peculiarity. A good many people have wanted to know how he finds things out.
Ah, mystery, is it? This is very piquant. Thank you very much for bringing us two together. The proper study of mankind is man, you know.
You must study him then. You'll find him a mystifying product. I'll wager he'll learn more about you than you about him.
These papers are full of straw. Take them to him at once. Make sure to tell him Sherlock Holmes sent you. Bring his attention to the Brixton Road case. He should be able to put it together from that.
Yes, sir.
Good boy. Make sure to come right back and tell me what he says.
Certainly, Mr. Holmes. Will you be needing the rest of the boys, sir?
No, we can least not today, I think, but we will discuss that when we return. Sorry for putting you to an inconvenience these past 6 weeks. I have clients to attend to, and I must use this room as a place of business. It's good of you to understand.
Not at all. What exactly?
What's that?
Nothing. Never mind. Listen to this. By a man's fingernails, by his coat sleeves, by his boots, by his trouser knees, by the callosity of his forefinger and thumb, by his expression, by his shirt cuffs, by each of these things a man's calling is plainly revealed. That all united should fail to enlighten the competent inquirer in any case is almost inconceivable. What an ineffable twaddle! I haven't read such rubbish in my entire life.
You don't say.
I don't deny that it is smartly written, but it is not practical. Evidently the theory of some armchair lounger who involves neat little paradoxes in the seclusion of his own study. I would like to see him clap down in a third-class carriage in the underground and ask to give the trades of all of his fellow travelers. I would lay 1,000 to 1 against him.
You would lose your money. As for the article, I wrote it myself.
You?
Yes. I have returned both for observation and deduction. Those theories laid out, which appear to you to be so chimerical, are really extremely practical. So practical that I depend upon them for my bread and cheese.
And how?
Well, I have a trade of my own. I suppose I am the only one in the world. I'm a consulting detective. Here in London, we have lots of government detectives and lots of private ones, and when these fellows are baffled, they come to me. And I manage to put them on the right scent. They lay all the evidence out before me, and I'm generally able to set them straight.
So you mean to tell me, without leaving this room, you can unravel some knots in which other men can make nothing of?
Quite so. I have a kind of intuition that way.
So these people you've been seeing?
Clients, agents, detectives. Take my latest client, Lestrade. He's a well-known detective for Scotland Yard. He got himself into fog recently over a forgery case. That is what brought him to me.
And the other people?
They are mostly sent by private agencies. I listen to their story, they listen to my comments, and then I pocket my fee. Those rules of deduction laid out in that article, which aroused your scorn, are invaluable to me in practical work.
I don't see how.
Let me give you an example. You appeared to be surprised on our first meeting when I told you you had come from Afghanistan.
You were told, no doubt.
Nothing of the sort. I knew you came from Afghanistan. The train of reasoning ran, here is a gentleman of a medical type, but with the air of a military man, clearly an army doctor. He has just come from the tropics, for his face is dark, but that is not the natural tint of his skin, for his wrists are fair. He has seen much hardship and sickness, as his haggard face says clearly. He's been wounded, for he holds his left arm in a stiff and unnatural manner, walks with a limp, where in the tropics, could an English army doctor have seen much hardship and got wounded? Clearly, Afghanistan.
It is as simple enough as you say it. You have an extraordinary genius for minutiae.
I appreciate their importance.
Oh, pardon, sir. Mr. Holmes, but she said he wanted to know what Inspector Lestrade had to say.
Excuse us, Doctor. Out with it.
He said the matter's all in good hands, and he'll have the residence searched again.
No, that will not do. It will only arouse more suspicion. Looks like we'll be needing some of the boys after all. Here, send 2 of them to this address. Murphy and the little one.
Stevenson.
Yes, that's the one. Have one watch the back door, the other the front. They are to take this note to the straw if a slight, middle-aged woman with red hair comes or goes. Got that?
Yes, sir.
We will help Lestrade solve his case despite of himself.
Certainly, Mr. Holmes. We'll get him straight.
Yes, yes. Here are your wages. Now, off you go!
What on earth was that about?
Wiggins is the representative of the Baker Street Division of the Detective Police Force.
Am I to understand that you employ children?
There's more work to be got out of those little beggars than out of a dozen of the force. The mere sight of an official-looking person seals men's lips. These youngsters go everywhere, hear everything. They're sharp as needles, too. All they want is organization, some change. Now, where were we?
Discussing your most unusual profession.
I am sure I weary you with my hobby.
Not at all. This is of the great interest to me. You wouldn't think me impertinent if I were to put your theories to a more severe test.
I should be delighted.
What did the article say? Ah, here it is. It is difficult for a man to have any object in daily use without leaving the impress of his individuality upon it in such a way that a trained observer might read it. Here, I have a watch which has recently come into my possession. Kindly give me the impression on the character of the late owner.
Well, the watch has been recently cleaned, which robs me of my most suggestive facts.
You are correct.
Though unsatisfactory, my research has not been entirely barren. I should judge that the watch belonged to your other brother, who inherited it from your father.
That you gather, no doubt, from the HW on the back.
Quite so. The W suggests your own name. The date on the watch is nearly 50 years back. The initials are as old as the watch, so it was made for the last generation. Your father has, if I remember right, been dead many years. Jewelry is usually passed on to the eldest son, therefore it has been in the hands of the eldest brother.
All right so far. Anything else?
He was a man of untidy habits, very untidy, careless. He was left with good prospects, but threw away his chances, lived for some time in poverty, with occasional short intervals of prosperity, and finally, taking to drink, he died. That's all I can gather.
This is unworthy of you, Holmes. I can't believe you would have descended into making inquiries into the history of my unhappy brother, and now you pretend to deduce this knowledge in some fanciful way? You can't expect me to believe that you got all that from my brother's watch?
My dear doctor, pray, accept my apologies. Viewing the matter as an abstract problem, I had forgotten how personal and painful the thing it might have been too. I assure you, however, that I never even knew you had a brother until you handed me that watch.
But how in the name of all that is wonderful did you get those facts? They are absolutely correct in every particular.
That is good luck. I did not expect to be so accurate.
But it was not mere guesswork?
No. No, I never guess. Destructive to the logical fact. I started by saying your brother was careless. If you observe the lower part of the watch case, you'll notice it is not only dented in 2 places, but is cut and marked all over from the habit of keeping other hard objects, such as coins or keys, in the same pocket. Surely a man who treats a 50-guinea watch so cavalierly must be careless. Neither is it a very far-fetched inference to assume a man who inherits such a watch was pretty well provided for.
That is true.
It is customary for pawnbrokers to scratch the ticket number upon the inside of the case. There are no less than 4 such numbers visible to my lens. Inference. Your brother was often a low water. Secondary inference. He occasionally had bursts of prosperity, or he could not have redeemed the watch. Finally, I ask you to look at the thousands of scratches around the keyhole, marks where the key is slipped. You'll never see a drunkard's watch without them.
It is as clear as daylight. I regret the injustice I did you.
Elementary, Doctor.
Pardon me, gentlemen.
Ah, Mrs. Hudson, do come in.
I hope I'm not interrupting anything, Doctor. It sounded like quite a discussion downstairs.
Don't worry yourself, Mrs. Hudson. We were just discussing my brother's watch.
What do you need?
Ah, nothing like getting to the point, eh, Holmes?
There's a young lady for you, sir.
Miss Mary Morstan. I have no recollection of that name. Did she say what you wanted?
I never think to ask. You know that, sir.
Indeed, Mrs. Hudson, I do. Ask the young lady to step up.
Yes, sir.
Don't go, Doctor. I should prefer that you remain. Ah, Miss Morstan! I am Sherlock Holmes, and this is my associate, Dr. John Watson, recently returned from service in Afghanistan.
How do you do, Doctor?
A pleasure.
Please, have a seat.
I have come to you, Mr. Holmes, because you once enabled my employer, Mrs. Cecil Forrester, to unravel a little domestic complication. She was much impressed by your kindness and skill.
Mrs. Cecil Forrester, yes, I believe I was of some slight service to her. The case, however, was a very simple one.
She did not think so, but at least you cannot say the same of mine. I can hardly imagine anything more strange, more utterly inexplicable than the situation in which I find myself.
State your case.
You will, I'm sure, excuse me.
If the doctor would be good enough to stay, he might be of inestimable service to me. Briefly, the facts are these. My father was an officer in an Indian regiment. My mother died in childbirth, and I had no relative in England. I was placed, however, in a comfortable boarding establishment in Edinburgh, and there I remained until I was 17. In 1871, Papa obtained leave and came home. He telegraphed me that he'd arrived in London and directed me to come down at once, giving his address as the Langham Hotel. I arrived at the Langham and was told Captain Mawson had gone out the night before and had not returned. I waited all day without news. I communicated with the police, and the next morning we advertised in all the papers. Our inquiries led to no results, and from that day to this, no word has been heard from my unfortunate father. He came home with his heart full of hope, to find some peace, some comfort, and strength. Thank you, Doctor. You are too good.
The date.
He disappeared upon the 3rd of December, 1871, nearly 10 years ago.
His luggage.
Remained at the hotel. There was nothing in it to suggest a clue, just some clothes, some books, and a considerable number of curiosities from the Andaman Islands. He had been one of the officers in charge of the convict guard at Port Blair.
Had he any friends in town?
Only one that we know of, a Major Schulter of the same regiment. The Major had retired some little time before and lived up in Norwood. We communicated with him, of course, but he did not even know my father was in England.
A bizarre case.
I have not yet described to you the most bizarre part. About 6 years ago, to be exact, on the 4th of May, 1875, an advertisement appeared in the Times asking for the address of Miss Mary Morstan, stating it would be to her advantage to come forward. I published my address, and the same day there arrived a small cardboard box, which I found to contain a very large and lustrous pearl.
How peculiar. Was there a note?
Nothing. No word of writing was enclosed. Since then, every year, upon the same date, there has appeared a similar box containing a similar pearl. You can see for yourself. They are quite handsome.
Those are 6 of the finest pearls I've ever seen.
Your statement is most interesting. Has anything else occurred?
Yes, and no later than today. That is why I have come to you. This morning, I received this letter.
Thank you. The envelope too, please. Postmark, London. Date, July 7th. Thumbprint on the corner, probably postman. Best quality paper. Envelopes are 6 pence a packet. Particular man in his stationery. No address. Smells faintly of sage and Indian tobacco. Miss Morstan, be at the 3rd pillar from the left, outside the Lyceum Theatre tonight, at 7 o'clock. If you are distrustful, bring 2 friends. You are a wronged woman, and shall have justice. Do not bring police. If you do, all will be in vain. Your unknown friend. You have a very pretty little mystery on your hands, Miss Morstan. What do you intend to do?
That is exactly what I want to ask you.
Then we shall most certainly go. You and I, and... Why, yes. Dr. Watson's the very man. Your correspondent says 2 friends.
But would he come?
It would be a great honor and pleasure if I can be of any service.
You're both very kind. If I meet you at the Lyceum at 6:30, which will do, I suppose?
Yes, but there is one other point. Is this handwriting the same as that on the pearl box addresses?
I have them here.
You are certainly a model client. You have the right intuition. Now, let us see. These are disguised hands, whereas the letter is not. See how the irrepressible Greek E will break out, and you see the final twirl on the S's? They are undoubtedly by the same person. I should not like to suggest false hopes, but is there any resemblance between this hand and that of your missing father?
Nothing could be more unlike.
I expected as much. We shall look for you then at 6:30. Pray, allow me to keep the papers. I may want to look into the matter before then. Au revoir, yes.
Au revoir.
What a very attractive woman.
Is she? I had not observed.
You really are an automaton, a calculating machine. There's positively something inhuman in you at times.
It is of the first importance never to allow your judgment to be biased by personal qualities. I assure you the most winning woman I ever knew was hanged for poisoning 3 children. The most repellent man of my acquaintance is a philanthropist who's donated nearly $250,000 on the London Board.
In this case, however,
I never make exceptions. An exception disproves the rule. Have you ever had an occasion to study handwriting? What do you make of this fellow's scribble?
it is regular and legible, a man of business habits, of some force of character.
Look at his long letters. They hardly rise above the common herd. Now, men of character always differentiate their letters. That D might be an A. That I might be an E. And this is a peculiar man, not accustomed to getting his own way, just being overshadowed by someone greater. Father, older brother, perhaps.
You got that all from the handwriting?
Yes. I am going out now. I have some references to make. Shall meet you at the Lyceum.
Perfect evening for the show. I think you'll really like this performance.
Extra, extra. Extra,
Holmes, over here. Well, did your inquiries bear any fruit?
There's no great mystery in the matter. The facts appear to be admit of only one explanation.
What? Have you solved it already?
That would be too much to say. I have discovered the suggested fact is all. I found when consulting the Times, Major Shorter died on the 28th of April, 1875.
I may be of two sons, but I do not see what this means.
No, you surprise me. Look at it this way then. Captain Morstan disappears, and the only person whom he could have visited is Major Shorter. Major denies having ever heard that he was in London. 4 years later, the Major dies. Within a week of his death, Captain Morstan's daughter receives an invaluable present, which is repeated each year, culminating in a letter describing her as a wronged woman. Now, what wrong can that refer to except this deprivation of her father? And why should the presents begin immediately after Shorter's death? Unless after Shorter's death, there's something of the matter. Wishes to make compensation.
But what strange compensation? And how strangely made? Why write a letter now rather than 6 years ago? Again, the letter speaks of giving her justice. But what justice can she have? I suppose it's too much to ask that her father's still alive? There is no other injustice in her case that we know of.
There are difficulties. There are certainly difficulties. The Major appeared to have 2 children. The eldest son, Bartholomew, still lives in the family estate. The youngest, Thaddeus, has somewhat property.
Do you think the letter and the pearls came from this Thaddeus Shelter?
You are catching on, Doctor. I do indeed think that. Ah, here is Miss Morstan.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Miss Morstan, what was your father's relationship to the late Major Shorter? If you don't mind me asking.
Major Shelter was a very good friend of Papa's. He and Papa had been in command of the troops at Port Blair, so they were together a great deal. By the way, a curious paper was found on Papa's desk, which no one could understand. I don't suppose it is of the slightest importance, but I thought you might care to see it, so I brought it with me.
It is paper of native Indian manufacture. Sometime it has been pinned to a board. It appears to be a plan of a large building with numerous holes and passages. At one point is a red cross done in ink. Above it, 3.37 from the left. In the left-hand corner is a curious hieroglyphic, like 4 crosses in a line with their arms touching. Jonathan Small, Mohammed Singh Abdullah Khan, Dost Akbar. The sign of 4. No. I confess I do not see how this bears upon the matter, yet it is evidently an important document. It has been kept in a pocketbook, for one side's as clean as the other.
It was in Papa's pocketbook when we found it.
Preserve it carefully, Miss Moulston. May be of use to us. I begin to suspect this matter may be much deeper and more subtle than our first supposed. I must reconsider my ideas.
Holmes, there's a coachman over there who's been eyeing us up for the past several minutes.
Yes, I noticed him earlier. Be on guard, Watson.
Are you the parties who come with Miss Morstan?
I am Miss Moulston. These 2 gentlemen are my friends.
You will excuse me, miss, but I was to ask you to give me your word that neither of your companions is a police officer.
I give you my word on that.
Very well, then. Come with me.
Never fear, Miss Moulston. We are with you.
Miss Morstan and friends?
Show them into me, Williams. Show them straight into me. Your servant, Miss Moulston. Your servant, gentlemen. Please, step into my little sanctum. A small place, but furnished to my own liking. A small oasis of art in the howling desert of South London. Mr. Thaddeus Sholto, that is my name. And you are Miss Moulston, of course. And you gentlemen?
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Dr. Lucille. Have you your stethoscope? If I might ask you, would you do me the kindness? I have grave doubts as to my mitral valve, if you would be so good. The aortic I may rely upon, but I should value your opinion on mitral. 1 second. You have no cause for uneasiness. Indeed, you must forgive my anxiety, Miss Moulston. I am a great sufferer, and I have long had suspicions as to that valve. I am delighted to see that they are unwarranted. Had your father refrained from throwing strain upon his heart, he might well be alive now. Here now. Oh, I'm sorry. I had not meant to offend the young lady.
It's all right, Mr. Sholto. I knew in my heart he was dead.
Please sit. I may offer you every information, and what's more, I may do you justice, whatever Brother Bartholomew might say. But please, let us have no outsiders, no police, no officials. Ooh, nothing would annoy Brother Bartholomew more than publicity.
For my part, whatever you may choose to say will go no further.
That is well. That is well. I may offer you a glass of Chianti, Miss Moulston, or of Tokay. Shall I open a flask? No? I trust you have no objection to tobacco. Balsamic odor of Eastern tobacco. Oh. I'm nervous. I find my hookah a most invaluable sedative. When I first decided to make this communication, I might have given you my address, but I was afraid you might bring unpleasant people with you.
That is why I sent Williams to meet you first. He had orders that if he were dissatisfied, to proceed no further. I seldom come in contact with the rough crowd. I live, as you can see, in some little atmosphere of elegance. I may call myself a patron of the arts.
You will excuse me, Mr. Sholto, but I am here at your request to learn something which you wish to tell me. It is very late. I should desire the interview to be as short as possible.
At the best, I'm afraid it must take some time, for we must certainly travel to Norwood, to Pondicherry Lodge, to see Brother Bartholomew. It's very angry with me for taking the course which seemed right to me.
If we are to go to Norwood, it would be as well to leave at once.
No, that won't do. No, that won't do at all. I must prepare you first. Now, as you all know, of course, my father was Major John Sholto, who retired 11 years ago and returned home with a considerable sum of money, a rather large collection of valuable curiosities, and a staff of native servants.
This we know.
Yes, of course, but I knew the sensation that was caused when your father, Captain Morstan, disappeared. Well, knowing that he and father were friends, we freely discussed them in his presence. Never did we suspect he held the whole secret hidden within his breast. Of course, we did know that there was some secret hanging over father. He was always very fearful about going out alone. And in fact, he even employed 2 prize fighters to act as porters. Williams was one of them. He was once lightweight champion of England.
Any idea what made your father fearful to venture out?
Father never told us what he feared, but he had an aversion to lame men with crutches. Oh, what's going so far as to fire upon a lame man who proved to be nothing more than a harmless tradesman? We had to pay a large sum to hush that one up. Are you sure I can't interest anyone in drink?
Mr. Sholto, please.
Of course. My apologies. Where was I?
Lame man. Cover up. Your father.
Of course. In 1875, father received a letter which shook him greatly. He sickened to his death. He summoned us to his deathbed and grasping our hands, made a most remarkable statement. I shall try to remember it and give it to you in his own words. There is but one thing that weighs heavy on my mind. It is my treatment of poor Morstan's orphan. The cursed greed which has been my sin has kept from her half the treasure which should have been hers. You, my sons, will give her a share of the Agra treasure.
So he had intended to make amends.
Yes, but he made us promise not to do anything until after he had died. He had taken out a small chaplet with the intention of sending it to Miss Morstan.
And the chaplet is the source of the purpose.
True enough, but I shall get to that. Captain Morstan and my father had come into possession of a considerable treasure, which was brought back to England by my father. When Captain Morstan arrived for his share, they argued over the division of the treasure.
So your father killed him.
Please, Watson, no speculation until we have all the facts.
No, but that is exactly what he thought people would think. In his anger, Captain Morstan stressed his already weak heart and died. Father knew that he would be accused of murder, so he concealed the body as well as the treasure. He was just about to tell us where the treasure was hidden. And he saw someone in the window. "Get him out! For God's sakes, get him out!" he cried. We turned our attention to the window upon which Father's gaze was fixed. There we saw a face staring back at us. Ran to the window, and by then he was gone. And when we returned to Father, his head had bowed and his pulse had ceased.
Can you describe this face in the window?
It was a very hairy, bearded man, with wild, cruel eyes and an expression of concentrated malevolence. That's the best I can do. I only saw him briefly.
Anything else unusual about that night?
Not so much that night, but the next morning we found that Father's bedroom window had been forced, and his chests and cupboards had been rifled. And affixed to Father's chest was a torn piece of paper with the words, "The sign of four," scrawled across it.
Are you alright, Miss Morstan? You turned deadly white and I you made faint.
No, I'm fine, Doctor.
The sign of 4? You are sure that's what was written?
Oh, yes, I shall never forget it. Nor that horrid face.
What of the treasure?
dug and delved for weeks and for months, went on all the grounds without ever discovering its hiding place. It was maddening to know that he was just enough to tell us when he died. We could judge the splendor of the treasure from the chaplet. Brother Bartholomew and I had a disagreement over the disposition of that chaplet. I'm afraid that Bartholomew is inclined to my father's fault. It was all I could do to persuade him to send a single pearl to Miss Horston at fixed intervals so that she might never feel destitute.
It was a kindly thought. It was very good of you.
We were your trustees. Or rather, that is the view I took of it. Brother Bartholomew could never altogether see the light.
So what has changed now that you contact Miss Morstan?
The treasure has been found.
Precisely!
But how was the treasure found after all this time?
Brother Bartholomew is a very clever fellow. He reasoned that the treasure must be hidden indoors. He worked out the cubic space of the house. He found that the height of the building was 74 feet, but the height of all the rooms inside, even allowing for space in between, was not more than 70 feet. There were 4 feet still unaccounted for. He knocked a hole in the highest room, and there, sure enough, he found a small garret, sealed off and known to no one. We found the chest resting on 2 rafters. Brother Bartholomew estimates the value of the jewels at not less than £500,000 sterling.
Even a third of that would make Miss Morstan the richest heiress in England.
Indeed.
You have done well, sir, from first to last, but we had better put the matter through without delay.
Very well. Williams, ready the carriage. We're off to Norwood, to Pondicherry Lodge.
At once, sir.
It's a warm night, I don't think you need quite a large...
Please, Doctor. My health is very fragile indeed. Shall we go?
Who's there?
Really? I would have thought you'd known my knock by now.
Is that you, Mr. Thaddeus? But who are all these other folk? Well, I know all about them from the master.
Really, McMurdo? You surprised me. I told my brother last night that I should be bringing some friends.
He ain't been out of his room all day, and I've got no orders. You know very well how strict regulations be, Mr. Thaddeus. I can let you. But your friends, I don't like to stay right here.
If I were to guarantee them, would that be good enough for you?
So sorry, Mr. Thaddeus. Rules is rules. Folks may be friends of yours and yet not be friends of the master's. It takes me well to do me duty. The duty I'll do. I don't know none of your friends.
Oh, yes you do, McMurdo. Don't you remember that amateur you fought 3 rounds with at Allison's room the night of your benefit 4 years back?
Not Mr. Sherlock Holmes. God's truth! How could I have mistook you? If you'd have just stepped up and given me that cross-hit right under the jaw like you did, all I recognised you. No questions. Well, I said, you know, I don't see why you guys can't come in. Just come in, all of you. You know, Mr. Thaddeus, I have to make sure about your friends. You know, rules being what they are with the master.
Perfectly all right. Now listen. McMurdo, if you would be so kind, Williams is in the street with the carriage. If you would be so kind as to open the service gate, that he might pull it in round there.
Yes, sir.
That's strange. I don't understand. I distinctly told Brother Bartholomew that we should be here, and yet I see no light in his window. I don't know what to make of that.
Does he always guard the premises in this way?
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm afraid he followed in Father's course. You know, Father believed that he was always Father's favourite, and I think he told him more than he told me. That's Brother Bartholomew's window up there, where the moonshine strikes, but there is no light within, I think.
None, but I do see a little glint of light in the window by the door.
Oh, yes, that's the housekeeper's room where old Mrs. Burnstone sits. She can tell us what's what. Wait one moment, I shall be back in just a moment.
What a strange place. It looks as though all the moles in England had been let loose in it. I had seen something of the sort on the hill near Balrog, where prospectors had been at work.
Yes, and from the same cause. These are the traces of the treasure seekers. You remember, the last 6 years looking for it, no wonder that
Something is amiss with one of the whole. I'm very frightened. My nerves cannot stand this.
Come into the house!
Yes, do. I really do not feel equal to giving directions.
Oh, Mr. Thaddeus, sir, I'm so glad you've come. I'm so glad you've come, Mr. Thaddeus, sir. Mr. Bartholomew hasn't been out of his room all day.
Brother Bartholomew? It's locked.
Master has locked himself in and will not answer me. I waited all day to hear from him, as he often likes to be alone, but now I think something is amiss.
Is there a key to this door?
Only one, sir, and Mr. Bartholomew keeps it on him.
Are we sure Mr. Sholto's in there?
Mr. Bartholomew, sir, are you in there? Your brother and some friends are here.
Oh, my dear lady, what's the matter?
Oh, it's horrible. Never have I seen a face like that.
Miss Morstan, take Mrs. Bernstone downstairs.
Come with me, Mrs. Bernstone. We'll get you some water.
Oh, God bless your sweet calm face, for today I've been sorely tried.
There is something devilish in this, Watson. What do you make of it?
There's a man seated at a desk. Judging from the expression on his face, he's dead. This is what must have frightened Mrs. Bernstone. This is terrible. What is to be done?
Wait here, by the door. Aha! You see?
The sign of fall. But in God's name, what does it all mean?
It means murder. Ah, yes, I expected it. Look here.
It looks like a thorn.
Yes, it is a thorn. You may pick it out, but be careful, for it is poison.
This is all an insoluble mystery to me. It grows darker instead of lighter.
On the contrary, it clears every instant. I only require a few missing links to have an entirely connected case. Oh, goodness me. Watson, what are you doing?
Showing some respect for the dead.
In the future, you will refrain from disturbing the crime scene before I've had a chance to examine it. Well, now that you have examined and handled the body, what is your estimate of the time of death?
It's hard to say without more instruments, but if I had to estimate, I'd say Mr. Sholto's been dead for at least a day.
That was my estimate as well.
The treasure. The treasure, someone has robbed him of the treasure. The room where we brought it down, the hole is in that room there. I helped him to carry it down. We placed it right here. I was the last person to see him alive. I remember when I left last night, I distinctly remember him locking the door as I went down the stairs.
What time was that?
10 o'clock.
Are there any other rooms that connect to this dressing room?
No, it's an empty room with a chair and no windows. He's dead. The police shall be summoned in. They shall think that I had handled it. Oh, I'm certain that they shall, I know it. You don't think so, do you, gentlemen? Surely you do think that I had anything to do with this. Why would I bring you here if I had anything to do with this? Oh dear, I shall go mad!
You have no reason for fear, Mr. Sholto. Take my advice. Go down to the station, report the matter to the police, offer to assist them in every way. We shall wait here until you return.
Yes, I shall. Yes.
Now, finally, we have some time to ourselves, Watson. Let's make good use of it. The case is almost complete. We must not err on the side of overconfidence. Simple as the case seems now. Maybe something deeper underlying.
Simple.
Surely. Just stand by the door so that your footprints don't complicate the matter. Now, to work. First of all, how did these folk come and go? The door? No. It's been locked from the inside since last night.
The window.
The window is latched, but snipped on the inner side. Framework is solid. Nearly 3 stories up. No water pipe in the air. Roof quite out of reach. And yet, a man is mounted by the window. It rained last night. You see the footprint on the sill? Beside it is a circular muddy mark with a drag mark. And here it is again upon the floor, and again by the table. See here, Watson, this is very, very pretty of a demonstration.
That is not a footmark.
No, it is something much more valuable to us. It is the impression of a wooden crutch.
The lame leg in that.
Quite so, but there has been someone else. A very able and efficient ally. Could you scale this wall, Doctor?
It is absolutely impossible.
Without aid, it is so. But imagine you had a friend up here who lowered you this good stout rope which I see in the corner. Then I think you should be able to swarm up the lame leg in the wall. You get apart in the same fashion, and your ally could get away in the way he originally came. It may be mentioned, our climber was not a professional sailor. His hands were far from horny. See here, blood marks on the rope from which I gather he slipped down with such velocity that he took skin right off his hand.
This seems very well, but the mystery becomes more unintelligible than ever. What of this mysterious ally? How came he into the room?
Yes, the ally, he breaks fresh ground in the crimes of animals of England, though parallel cases suggest themselves in India and Senegalia.
How came he in? The door was locked, the window inaccessible. How then?
You will not apply my precept. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. We know he did not come through the door or the window. We also know he cannot still be in the room, for there's no concealment possible. Where, then, did he come?
He came through the hole in the roof.
Yes! He must have done so. If you'll be so kind as to grab the lamp, we shall extend our researches to the room above, the secret room where the treasure was found. Ah, yes, here you are. You see there's a trapdoor that leads out onto the room. There's the room itself gently sloping away. This, then, is the way by which our number one entered. Come, Watson, take a look at these footmarks.
Holmes! A child has done this horrid thing. These footmarks are scarcely half the size of an ordinary man.
There's nothing more to be learned here. Let us go down. I must admit, I'm staggered for a moment, but the thing is quite natural. My memory failed me, or I should have been able to foretell it.
What is your theory, then, to those footmarks?
My dear doctor, try a little analysis yourself. You know my methods, apply them, and it shall be instructive to compare results.
I can't conceive anything that would cover all the facts.
It will be clear enough to you all soon. I think there's nothing more to be found, but I shall look. We are in luck! Our number one has had the misfortune of treading in creosote. See here, this outline of his foot in this evil-smelling mess.
What then?
Why, we've got him, that's all. I know a dog that would follow that scent to the world's end. Hello. Here are the accredited representatives of the law. Before they come, place your hand on this poor fellow's arm. What do you feel?
The muscles are as hard as boards.
They are in a state of extreme contraction, far exceeding the usual rigor mortis which frightened Mrs. Bernstone. What would that suggest to your mind?
Death from some vegetable alkaloid, some strychnine-like substance.
That was the idea that occurred to me the moment I saw the drawn muscles of the face. You observed that we found a thorn that was shot or driven into the man's neck. If he were right in the chair, the spot struck would face the dressing room. Now, examine the thorn. Is that an English thorn?
No, it certainly is not.
With all this data, you should be able to draw some inference. Here are the regulars, so the auxiliary forces may beat a retreat.
Here's a business. Here's a pretty business. But who are all these? Why, it seems the house is as full as a rabbit warren.
I think you must recollect me, Mr. Abernathy Jones.
Why, of course I do.
It's Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the theorist. Remember you. I'll never forget how you lectured us all on causes and inferences and effects in the Bishopgate jewel case. Oh, it's true you set us on the right track, but your own now is more by good luck than good guidance.
It was a very simple piece of reasoning.
Oh, come now. Never be ashamed to own up. But what is all this? Bad business. Bad business. Stern facts here. No room for theories. Lucky I happen to be out of Norwood over another case. What do you think the man died of?
This is hardly a case for me to theorize over.
No, still. We can't deny you hit the nail on the head sometimes. Dear me. Door locked, I understand. Joe's worth a fortune missing. How is this window?
Fastened, but there are steps on the sill.
Well, if it was fastened, the steps could have nothing to do with the matter. That's common sense. The man may have died in a fit. But the jewels are missing. I have a theory. These flashes come upon me at times. Constable.
Yes, sir.
Kindly escort Mr. Schultz out.
Right, boy.
What do you think of this, Holmes? Schultz, on his own confessions, was with his brother last night. The brother died in a fit, and Schultz walked off with the treasure.
On which then the dead man very considerately got up and locked the door from the inside.
There's a flaw here. Let us apply common sense to the matter. This Thaddeus Schultz was with his brother. The brother is dead, the jewels are gone. So much we know. No one saw the brother after Thaddeus left him. Thaddeus is evidently in a most disturbed state of mind. His appearance is, well, not attractive. You see that I'm weaving my web around Thaddeus. The net begins to close upon him.
You are not quite in possession of all the facts yet. This thorn, which I have every reason to believe is poison, was found in the man's neck. And this card, if you'll please, Watson, inscribed, as you see, was found pinned to the man's back. And on this table lay a rather curious, stone-headed instrument. Now, how does all of that fit into your theory?
Confirms it in every respect. House is full of Indian curiosities. Thaddeus brought this up. And if the thorn is poisonous, Thaddeus may as well have made murderous use of it as anyone else. The card is some hocus pocus. A blind that throws off the trap is like mine. The only question is, how did he depart? Another rule? There's a hole in the roof! Aha!
You can find some things. He has occasional glimmerings of reason.
You see, facts are better than theories after all. My view of the case is confirmed. There's a trap door communicating with the hole in the roof. And it is partly open.
Yes, it was I who opened it.
Oh, indeed. You did notice it then. Well, whoever noticed it, it shows how our gentleman got away. Constable Mercer!
Hi, Inspector.
Bring Mr. Sholto back in.
Right away, sir.
Mr. Sholto, it is my duty to inform you that anything which you may say will be used against you. I arrest you in the Queen's name for the death of your brother.
See, what did I tell you? Do not trouble yourself, Mr. Schulte. I think that I can engage to clear you of the charges.
Don't promise too much, Mr. Theorist.
Not only will I clear him, I will make a free present of the name and description of one of the two men who were in this room last night. His name is Jonathan Small. He's a poorly educated man, active but lame, dragging his right foot and using a crutch. Also, it may be mentioned there's a considerable amount of skin missing from the palm of his hand. The other man...
Hey, the other man?
The other man is a rather curious fellow. I hope to introduce the pair of them to you before too long.
More theories. Constable, escort Mr. Sholto to the wagon.
Yes, sir.
You'll find there's nothing more here than brothers fighting over a treasure. Go home and sleep well, Mr. Holmes.
Watson? This unexpected occurrence has caused us to lose sight of the original purpose of our journey.
I was just thinking, sir. I do not think it is right that Miss Mawson is to stay in such a stricken house.
No, you must take her home. She lives in Lower Camberwell, so it's not so very far. I will wait here for you return, if you're not too tired.
Not at all. I don't think I can rest until I know more of this fantastic business. I should like to see it through with you.
Your presence will be of great service to me. We shall work the case out independently. Leave this Jones fellow to exalt over any mares and ask what he chooses to construct. Now, I wish you to go to number 3, Pension Lane, third house on the left, bird stuffers, named Sherman. Ask Sherman with my compliments that I want Toby at once. You'll take Toby back with you in the cab.
A dog, I suppose.
I'd rather have Toby's help than that with the whole detective force of London.
I will bring him then.
I shall wait here, study the great Jones, his methods, listen to his not too delicate sarcasms.
It is 1 now. I ought to be back by 3 if I am to get a fresh horse.
Then make haste, Watson. The game's afoot.
This is the place, Doctor. Thank you for your kindness. It is very late, and I'm afraid my emotions are stretched very thin.
It was my duty and pleasure, Miss Mawson. I don't know if I would have held up as well at your place, to find and know the fate of your unfortunate father. At least there's some comfort in that.
If only he had not gone to Major Sholto's, I might have seen him one more time. You must think me useless.
Quite the contrary. You were quite bright and placid by the side of Mrs. Burnstone. She was very upset.
Can you blame her? She described your master's face to me. I'm happy it was not I that saw it.
I'm sure she is much the better off for your calm face and angelic demeanor. Still, who am I to judge if you've been sorely tried by the adventures of the night, Miss Mawson?
Mary, my dear, I was so worried about you.
Oh, it's nearly 2 o'clock.
Everyone else was abed, and I couldn't go to sleep until I knew you were safe.
I am safe and home. Mrs. Forrester, this is Dr. Watson, the associate of Mr. Sherlock Holmes I was telling you about.
A pleasure, madam.
You're right, Mary. You are a handsome one, even if you do need a little meat, Dr. Holmes.
Yes. Well, I've been ill.
Back from the war, Mary tells me.
Yes, on inactive duty due to my health.
You look fine to me, Doctor.
The doctor was just seeing me home. It's been a very eventful night.
Oh, well, you'll have to come in and tell me of your adventures this evening. It must be peculiar indeed in order to have you out to this late hour.
I would like nothing more, but the importance of my errand prevents me from staying. I will, however, call and report any progress in which we make.
I'll hold you to that, Doctor. Now come inside here.
You must forgive Mrs. Forrester. She has it in her head that I should settle down and start a family of my own.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. If you find the right man, of course.
Of course.
Oh, yes, she obviously cares for you.
Oh, I've no doubt of that. She's more like the mother I never had.
Oh, I had forgotten. Forgive me. It must have been hard growing up without either parent.
It wasn't all bad. I saw Papa whenever he was on leave, and I was certainly well cared for.
What was he like, the captain?
He was very kind, very dear to me. Never once heard him raise his voice. And yet, I feel as though I never really knew him. He'd never tell me stories of his time in the service. If it weren't for his uniform, I might never have known he was a soldier. And you, what of your family?
I have no family now. My elder brother was the last, and he passed away while I was in Afghanistan.
Must be lonely.
I have Holmes, I suppose.
Mr. Holmes, he seems distant.
Well, he's not that bad. He grows on you after a while.
I completely understand, Doctor. One learns to make do with the family they have, related or not.
Your strength is admirable.
Is it merely my strength you admire, Doctor?
One of many qualities to be admired.
Do you think Mr. Holmes will be able to find the killer?
I don't know. He is possessed with an overabundance of confidence, and I do not know if it is warranted or not. If his confidence is to be believed, he will solve this singular incident and find the killer, And the treasure?
Of course, the treasure. It's a thought that is not yet settled in my mind.
Your share will make you immensely wealthy.
Yes, there is that. I wouldn't know what to do with that sort of wealth.
Establish your own household, no doubt. You would leave Mrs. Cecil Forrester's employ, of course.
Yes, I suppose I would.
Servants, a nice house in the country. Find a husband befitting your fortune. And start that family you mentioned earlier.
Has something upset you, Doctor?
Not at all. I should be on my errand. Holmes will be expecting me.
Mary!
Coming! Yes, of course. Good night, and thank you.
Good night, Miss Morstan.
Evening, Mr. Holmes.
Greetings! A bit late for you, is it not?
Not at all, sir. As I understand it, you've got some investigating to do, and I'm your man.
I found this one of the bird sellers. He insisted he's good with dogs and he should come along. I tried to persuade him.
Quite all right. Since you're here, I have a task for you. You see that gray barrel against the house with the water pipe?
Aye.
I want you to scamper up that pipe to the roof. Once on the roof, there's a trap door that leads into a crawl space and a hole in the ceiling. I want you to drop down into the room, come back down via the house. Think you can do that?
No problem at all, sir.
I want you to keep your eye out for anything out of place or unusual. I've already examined the room, so focus on the climb and the roof. I want a full report.
You can count on me, Governor?
Wiggins.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Most definitely, sir.
He'll be fine, Doctor. A most capable young man, but don't let him hear you say that.
His family won't be cross with you for using him.
Mother passed away in childbirth with his youngest brother. His father's a drunkard who's unlikely to even know he's here.
I see.
He's a good sword, sharp as a tack and more observant than most. Toby!
We left him tied outside the gate. We were just coming to get you.
Abernethy Jones has gone and had himself an immense display of energy since you left. He arrested not only friend Thaddeus, but the gatekeeper, the housekeeper, the coachman, and the Indian servant. What do you think of it?
He's certainly cast a wide net.
I tried to tell him he was fishing in the wrong pond, but he's far too clever for me. Come over here now. I wish you to notice these footmarks. Do you observe anything noteworthy about them?
They were made by a child or small woman.
Apart from their size, though, is there nothing else?
No, they are as other footmarks.
Not at all. See here the print of the right foot in the dust, and beside it, a print I made with my own naked foot. What is the chief difference?
Your toes are all cramped together. The small print has each toe distinctly divided.
Right, so that is the point. Bear it in mind.
I shall, but I fail to see what bearing it has on tonight's mystery.
In due time. Here, I dipped this into the creosote earlier. And number one stuffed it, if you recall, over there against the wall. Smell the edge of the flagstone.
There's a strong tarry smell.
If you can trace him, Watson, I should think Toby will have no difficulties even with their 24-hour start.
That certainly didn't take long.
No problem at all, sir. There are good footholds the whole way up.
What did you find?
Someone else has been climbing there, sir. It was easy enough to follow along past Wilson the whole way along. Oh, and he dropped this.
Did you touch anything in this bag?
No, sir. I brought it straight away to you.
Just as well that you didn't.
There's a couple dozen of those poison spines in here, Holmes.
They are hellish things. Look out that you don't prick yourself. I am delighted to have them, however, for the chances are, now that there's less fear of us finding one in our neck, that's probably all he has. Are you game for a 6-mile trudge, Watson?
Certainly.
Your leg will stand it.
Oh, yes.
Let's be off! Probably with the idea of escaping observation now or long before Toby gets too far ahead of us.
I
sir. I'll catch him up and meet with you on the east end of the oval.
Sorry for keeping you back, Holmes.
Not at all, Doctor. Walk at your pace. Wiggins will see to Toby. Definitely on the right trail. See here the print of the lame-legged man's hand. You see the slight smudge of blood.
I confess I had my doubts.
Do not imagine that I depend on our success in this case in the mere chance of one of these fellows having put his foot in Criosa. I have knowledge that would allow us to trace them in other ways. This, however, is the readiest. Since fortune is put it in our hands, I should be culpable if I neglected it. Has, however, prevented the case from becoming this pretty little intellectual mystery it at one time promised to be. Might have been some credit to be gained for it, but it's all too palpable clue.
There's credit, and to spare. I assure you, Holmes, I marvel at the means in which you obtain your results. How, for example, could you describe with such confidence the lame-legged man?
My dear man, it was simplicity itself. I do not wish to be theatrical. It's all above board. 2 officers in charge of convicts learn an important secret as to buried treasure. The map was drawn for them by an Englishman named Jonathan Small. You remember we saw his name in the chart in Captain Morstan's possession? He signed it on behalf of himself and the associates, the sign of fall, as he somewhat dramatically called it. Aided by the chart, the officers get the treasure, bring it back to England.
But why did not Jonathan Small get the treasure himself?
The answer is quite obvious. The chart's dated at a time when Morstan was brought into close association with convicts. Jonathan could not get the treasure himself. He and his associates were convicts and were somewhat predisposed.
But this is mere speculation.
No, it is more than that. It's the only hypothesis which comes to pass. Let us see how it fits with the sequel. Major Shorter remains at peace for some years, happy to be in possession of the treasure, but then receives a letter from England. Gives him a great fright. What was that?
A letter to say that the men whom he had wronged had been set free.
Or escaped. That is much more likely, for he would have known the term of their imprisonment. What does he do then?
Guards himself against a lame man.
A white man, mark you, for he mistakes a white tradesman for him, and actually fires a pistol. Now, only one white man's name is on the chart.
Jonathan Small.
Precisely. The others are Hindus or Mohammedans, therefore, we may say with confidence, lame-legged man is Jonathan Small. Does the reasoning strike you as being faulty?
No, it is clear and concise.
Let us put ourselves in the place of Jonathan Small. He comes back with the idea of regaining what he regards as rightfully his, and of having revenge upon the men who had wronged him. He cannot find the treasure, however, so he bides his time.
Oh, but then the Major fell ill and was on his deathbed.
Indeed, Watson. What would you do in Small's place?
Rush to know, lest the secret of the treasure die with him. He was only deterred from entering the room by the presence of his 2 sons. Later he returns, searches his private papers for some memorandum relating to the treasure, and leaves a memento of his visit, a card reading the sign of fall.
Now you are getting the hang of it. No doubt he had planned to confront him and had the card prepared beforehand so that, should he slay the Major, he would leave a record that this was not a common murder, but an act of justice. Do you follow all of this?
Very clearly.
Now let us put ourselves in the shoes of Jonathan Small. What could he do? He can only keep watch in the hopes that the treasure is found. Then the discovery is made. Jonathan, with his lame leg, is utterly unable to reach Bartholomew Sholto's room. He brings with him a rather curious associate. He gets over this trouble, but dips his naked foot in Creosote, whence come Toby, and a 6-mile limp for a half-pay officer with a damage tend to kill him.
But it was the associate, and not Small, who committed the crime.
Quite so. And rather to Small's disgust, to judge from the way that he snapped about the room, there was no help for it, however. The savage instincts of his companion had broken out. The poison had done its work. That is the train of events as far as I can decipher them.
As to his personal appearance,
he must be middle-aged. His height is readily calculated by the length of his stride. And we know he was bearded. There was one point that would impress himself upon Thaddeus Sholto.
The associate?
Yes. There's no great mystery in that, but we shall know all about it soon enough. Did you bring your bullpup?
I'm afraid not. It's in my desk. I have my stick.
I have mine. It's just as well that we might eat one if we get to their lair. Jonathan I shall leave to you. But if the other turns nasty, I shall shoot him dead.
Mr. Holmes, sir.
I thought you were going to wait for us at the Oval.
I was, sir. When I called up to Toby, who is at the end of Broad Street, where it runs down to the water, where there's a small wooden wharf, sir. He was just standing there and whining and looking at the dark water beyond.
Ah! We are out of luck! They have taken to a boat.
Well, there's a small brick house there, sir. Owner's a Captain Smith. He has a steam launch by the hour. Maybe they took that.
Wiggins, you
Yes, sir.
have performed admirably. Let Toby take him back to the boat steppers. Watson and I shall have a look at this wharf.
Aye, sir.
What does that watch of yours tell you?
It is just past 7, Holmes.
Come, Doctor. Let us see what this Captain Smith has to say.
Smith, boats for hire by the hour or dead.
This looks bad. These folks have covered their tracks much more clever than I expected. There has, I fear, been preconcerted management here.
Come back and be washed, Jack. Come back, you young imp. Father comes home and finds you like that. He'll let us hear a bit.
Dear little chap, what a rosy-cheeked young rascal. Now, Jack, is there anything that you would like?
I'd like a shilling.
Nothing you would like better.
I'd like 2 shillings.
There you are, then. Go get washed. A fine child, Mrs. Smith.
Lord bless you, sir. He is that. Looking forward. He gets almost too much from his manage, especially when their man is away days at a time.
Away is he? I'm sorry for that, for I wanted to speak to Mr. Smith.
He's been away since yesterday morning, sir. Truth to tell, I'm beginning to be frightened about him. But if it were about the boat, sir, maybe I could serve as well.
I wanted to hire his steam launch.
Why, bless you, sir, 'tis the steam launch that he has gone. And that's what puzzles me, for I know there ain't more coals in her that can take us to about Woolwich and back. If he'd been in the way of the barge, I'd have thought nothing. But many a time the drawbers taken him as far as Gravesend. Then if there was much doing there, I might stay over. But what good is a steam launch without coals?
Or maybe he bought some on the wharf down the road.
He might, sir, but they weren't his way. Many a time I've heard him call out the prices they charge for a few odd bags. Besides, I don't like that lame man with his ugly face and outlandish talk. What did he want always knocking about here for?
A lame man?
Yes, sir. A brown, monkey-faced chap was called more than once from my old man. It was him that roused him up in the night. Once more, my man knew he was coming, for he had a steam up and in the launch. To tell you straight, sir, I don't feel easy in my mind about it.
But, my dear Mrs. Smith, how can you possibly know that it was the lame man that came in the night? I don't understand how you could be so sure.
His voice, sir. I knew his voice, which was kind of thick and foggy. He tapped at the window, about midnight it would be. "Show a leg, matey," says he. "Time to turn out guard." Well, he woke up my old man Jim, and away they went without so much as a word to me. I could hear his crutch clacking on the stones.
And was the lame-legged man alone?
Couldn't say, I'm sure, but didn't hear no one else.
I am sorry, Mrs. Smith, for I wanted to hire a steam launch, and I have heard good reports about the...
Oh,
what is...
The Aurora, sir.
Yes, she's not that old green launch, very broad in the beam.
No, indeed, sir. She's as trim as any little thing on the river. She's been fresh painted, black, with 2 red streaks.
Thank you. We are going down the river. If we should hear anything of the Aurora, we shall let him know you are uneasy. A black funnel, you say?
No, sir. Black with a white band.
Of course it were the sides that were black. Good morning, Mrs. Smith. Come, Watson, let us go to... The main thing with people of that sort is never to allow them to think their information to be of the slightest importance to you. If they do, they will instantly shut up like an oyster. But if you listen to them under protest, as it were, you're very likely to get what you want.
Our path now seems pretty clear.
Really? What would we do then?
Engage a launch and go down the river on search of the Aurora.
My dear man, it would be a colossal task. She may have touched at any wharf on the other side of the river between here and Greenwich. There's a perfect labyrinth of landing places for miles underneath the bridge. It'd take you days and days to exhaust them.
Employ the police then.
It's probably call evidently Jones in the last moment. He's not a bad fellow. I don't wish to ruin his reputation, but I have a fancy for working it out myself, now that we have gone so far.
Could we advertise then? Asking for information from orphans.
Worse and worse. Men would know the trail was hot and they would be off and out of the country. Jones's energy will be of use to us then, however, for his view of the case is sure to push itself into the daily press, and the runaways will think that everyone is off on the wrong side.
What are we to do then?
Take a hansom drive home, get some sleep, some breakfast. It's quite on the cards, we may be afoot again tonight.
Did you have a good sleep? I'm perfectly fresh now and ready for another night's out.
Take a look at this. The energetic Jones and the ubiquitous reporter fixed it between them. But you have had enough of the case. Better have your ham and eggs first.
Mysterious business at Upper Norwood. About 12 o'clock last night, Mr. Bartholomew Shelter of Pondicherry Lodge, Upper Norwood, was found dead in his room under circumstances which point to foul play. No actual traces of violence were found, and a valuable collection of Indian gems had been carried off. The discovery was made by Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson, who had called at the house with Mr. Thaddeus Shelter, a brother of the deceased. By a singular piece of good fortune, Mr. Abernathy Jones, the well-known member of the detective police force, happened to be at the Norwood police station and was on grounds within half an hour of the first alarm. His trained and experienced faculties were at once directed towards detection of the criminals, with the gratifying result that the brother, Thaddeus Shelter, has already been arrested, together with the housekeeper, Mrs. Burnstone, an Indian butler named Lau Rao, and a porter named McMurdo.
It's mixed oranges. What do you think of it?
I think we've had a close save ourselves of being arrested for the crime.
So do I. I wouldn't answer for our safety now if he were to have another one of his attacks of energy.
By heavens, Holmes, they're really after us.
It is not quite so bad as that. It is the unofficial force, the Baker Street irregulars.
Mr. Officer, I can't be having this lot of urchins bursting in here. Didn't let me have my thoughts. It's bad enough that I have to keep up after the two of you.
I will take care of it, Mrs. Hudson.
You would think this is Paddington Station and not a respectable residence.
Got your message there, Brother Longshot.
Wiggins, Stevenson, where are the rest of the boys?
All down on the street. Mrs. Hudson refused to let us all up.
Just as well. In the future, they can report to you, Wiggins. You to me. In the interest of keeping the peace, we must not have the house invaded in this fashion.
Understood, Mr. Holmes. We'll keep the troops on the outside.
You remember Mr. Mordecai Smith from last evening?
The one with the launch down on Broad Street.
That's the one. I want you to find the Aurora of his steam launch. Black with two red streaks, funnel black with a white band. I want one boy to be at Mordecai Smith's landing to say if the boat is coming back. You need to divide the rest of the banks amongst yourselves. Do both banks thoroughly. You need to know the moment you have news. Is that understood?
Yes, Governor.
Yes, Governor.
A day's pay in advance and a guinea to the boy who finds the boat. Now, off you go! If the boat is above water, they will find it. Expect to hear before evening that they have spotted it. We can do nothing yet but just wait for results.
Are you going to bed, Holmes?
No. I have a curious constitution. I never remember feeling tired by work, but idleness exhausts me completely. I'm going to smoke and think over this queer business. Lame-legged men are not so common, but This other man, I should think, is absolutely unique.
That other man?
Yes. I do not wish to make a mystery of him to you longer, but you must have formed your own opinion. Consider the data. Diminutive footmarks, boots never fettering the feet, thus naked feet, great agility, stone-headed wooden mace, poisoned thorns. What do you make of all of this?
A savage, perhaps one of the Indians who was an associate of Jonathan Small.
Hardly that. I was inclined to think so myself when I saw the strange weapons, but then I saw the character of the footmarks. The Hindu has long and thin feet, and the Mohammedan has the great toe separated from the rest because a thong is commonly passed between them. Now, where are we to find our savage?
South America.
Andaman Islands, situated 340 miles to the north of Sumatra in the Bay of Bengal. What's all this? Moist climate? Ah, here we are. The Aborigines of the Andaman Islands may perhaps claim the distinction of being the smallest race upon this earth. They are fierce, morose, and intractable people. They're capable of forming the most devoted friendships. When their confidence has been gained, mark that, Watson. Now listen to this. They are naturally hideous, misshapen heads and distorted features. Their feet and hands, however, are remarkably small. They have always been a horror to shipwreck crews, braining the survivors with their stone-headed clubs, or shooting them with their poisoned darts. These massacres are invariably concluded with a cannibal feast. Nice, amiable people. I should think that if this fellow were left to his own devices, it may have taken a more ghastly turn. Even as it were, Jonathan Small would take a great deal not to have employed him.
But how came he to have so a singular companion?
That is more than I can tell. No doubt we shall know all about it soon at the time.
Can I do anything?
We can do nothing. Only wait. You can do as you will, but I must be on guard.
Then I shall go to Camberwell and call upon Mrs. Cecil Forster. She asked me to early.
Mrs. Cecil Forster.
And, of course, Miss Morstan, too. They'll be anxious to hear what happened.
Do not tell them too much. Women are never to be trusted. I'm not the best of them.
I shall be back in an hour or two. Good morning, Mrs. Hudson. I suppose Mr. Holmes has gone out.
No, sir. He has gone to his room, sir. Oh, do you know, sir? I'm afraid for his health.
Why so, Mrs. Hudson?
Well, is that strange, sir? For 3 days now, ever since you discovered that body up in Norwood, he's been walking up and down and up and down and up and down until I was weary of his footsteps. Then I heard him talking to himself and muttering, and every time the doorbell rang out, he came on the stairhead with, "What is that, Mrs. Hudson?" And then he slammed off to his room. I hope he's not going to be ill, sir. I ventured to say something to him about cooling medicine, but he turned on me, sir, with such a look that I don't know how I ever got out of the room.
I don't think you have any cause to be uneasy, Mrs. Hudson. He has a small matter on his mind, which makes him restless.
Watson, is that you?
I'll leave him to you then, Doctor.
You've been knocking yourself up, old man. I heard you marching about in the night.
I could not sleep. This infernal problem is consuming me. It's too much to be balked by so petty an obstacle when all else has been overcome.
But no news, then?
Wiggins has just been up to report, and he says there can be no trace of the launch. The boys have been searching for 3 days. It is a provoking check for every hour is of importance. I shall come to the conclusion soon that they have scuttled the craft.
Or that Mrs. Smith has put us on the wrong scent.
I think that may be dismissed. I've made inquiries, and there is a description of that launch.
Could it have gone up the river?
I thought of that too. There's a search party who will work as far as Richmond.
Have you read any of today's newspapers?
No, as of yet, no.
There are many articles upon the Norwood tragedy. They all seem rather hostile to the unfortunate Thaddeus Shelton. There's no new news, only that they were holding an inquest this morning.
I'm off down the river. I have been turning it over in my head and old events.
Surely I can come with you.
No, no. You must remain here as my representative. I am loath to go, but it's quite on the cards that Wiggins might be up to report some message, though he was despondent about it. You are to open all telegrams and cards. That's on your own judgment. And I rely on you.
Most certainly.
I'm afraid you won't be able to wire me, for I'm hardly yet able to tell where I can find myself. With luck, I may not be gone so very long.
Good luck, Holmes.
And to you, Doctor.
Dr. Watson, sir, the detective insisted he talk to someone.
Good day, sir. Good day. Mr. Sherlock Holmes is out, I understand.
Yes, he left over this morning and has been gone about 8 hours. I cannot say when he will return. If you'd like to wait for him, why don't you take a seat and try one of these cigars?
Well, thank you. Don't mind if I do.
Whiskey.
Half a glass. It is very hot for the time of year, and I've had a good deal to worry and try me. You know my theory about this Norwood case.
I remember that you expressed one.
Well, I've been obliged to reconsider it. I had my neck drawn tightly around Mr. Sholto, sir, when pop, he went through a hole in the middle of it. He's had an alibi that could not be shaken. From the time he left his brother's room, he was never out of the sight of someone or other. So it could not be he who climbed over ropes and through trap doors. A very dark case. My professional credit is at stake. I should very much like a little assistance.
We all need help sometimes.
Your friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He's a wonderful man, sir. He's a man not to be beat. I have known that young man go in on a good many cases. I never saw a case yet that he could not throw a light upon. He's irregular in his methods. But I think he would have made a most promising officer, and I don't care who knows it. I've had a wire from him this afternoon, which I understand he's got a clue to this Sholto matter. It's dated from Poplar at 12 o'clock. This is his message. Go to Baker Street at once. If I have not returned, wait for me. I am close on the track of the Sholto gang. You can come with us tonight if you want to be in at the finish.
This is very well. Evidently he's picked up the scent again.
Ah, so he's been at fault too. Even the best of us are thrown off sometimes.
Doctor, this gentleman insisted on seeing someone. He says it is most urgent.
Thank you, Mrs. Hudson. You may go. What is it, my man?
Is Mr. Sherlock Holmes here?
No, but I'm acting for him. You can tell me any message you have for him.
It was to him himself I was to tell him.
But I tell you, he is not here. Was it about Mordecai Smith's boat?
Yes, I knows well where it is, and I knows well where the men he's after are, and I knows where the treasure is. I knows all about it.
Well, then tell me, and I shall let him know.
No, it was to him I was to tell it.
Well, then you'll have to wait for him.
No, no. I ain't going to waste the whole day for nobody. Mr. Holmes ain't here. Mr. Holmes was going to pull out for himself. I don't like the look of either of you, and I won't say a word.
Take a bit, my friend. You have important information and you must not walk off. We shall keep you, whether or not you like it, until our friend returns.
Pretty sort of treatment this. I come here to see the gentleman, and you two, who I never saw in my season, treat me in this fashion.
You will be none the worse. We will recompense you for your loss of time. Take a seat on the sofa, and you won't have to wait long.
You think he'll be much longer, though?
Hard to say. He left me no means in which to contact him with.
I should think that you could offer me a cigar too.
Holmes? But the old man?
Here is the old man, wig, whiskers, and all. thought my disguise was pretty good, but I hardly expected it to stand that test.
You rogue! You would have made an actor and a rare one. If you had the proper work-cost cough and those weak legs of yours are worth £10 a week. I thought I knew the glint in your eye, though.
I have been working in this get-up all day. See, a good amount of the criminal classes begin to know me, so I must go onto the warpath in one of these simple disguises. How has your case prospered?
All come for nothing. I've had to release 2 of my prisoners, and there's no evidence against the other 2.
No matter. We shall give you 2 in the place of them. You are welcome to the official credit, but you must act on the guidelines which I point out. Is that clear?
Entirely, if you'll take me to the men.
First of all, I would like a police boat, steam launch, to be at the Westminster Stairs at 7 o'clock.
That's easily managed. There's always one about there.
Then I shall request 2 staunch men, in case of resistance.
There'll be 2 or 3 on the boat. What else?
I think it would be a great pleasure to my friend here to show the box to the young lady to whom half of it rightfully belongs. Let her be the first to see it, eh, Watson?
It'd be a great pleasure to me.
Highly irregular. But the whole thing is irregular, and I suppose we must wink at it. Afterwards, it must be turned over to the authorities who will have the official investigation.
Certainly. Also, I would like to have a talk with this Jonathan Small to work out the last details of my case.
You are the master of the situation. I have no evidence yet of this Jonathan Small. If you catch him, I don't see how I can deny you an interview.
That is understood, then.
Entirely. Anything else?
Only that I insist upon you dining with us. For ready in half an hour, we're to have oysters, a brace of grouse, something choice in white wine. Watson, you have not yet recognized my merits as a housekeeper. Captain, is there anything to mark this as a police boat?
Yes, that green lamp at the side, sir.
Take it off!
Oh, you're right way.
Where to?
To the tower, stop opposite Jacobson's yard.
If this is a quick launch, Holmes, we should be able to catch anything on the river.
Well, hardly that, but there's not many launches that can beat us.
We shall have to catch the Aurora, and she has a reputation for being a clipper. Watson, I have not told you how the land lies. You recollect how annoyed I was at being balked by some petty thing.
Yes.
I thought to myself, if I were in small shoes, where could I conceal the launch and yet have it on hand with a moment's notice? I should think that I could take it to a boat builder, or repair it with directions to make a trifling change. She would then be taken to a shed, so be effectually concealed, while I could still have her at hand whenever I wanted.
Seems simple enough.
It is the simple things that are liable to be overlooked. I started at once in my common seaman's disguise and inquired all down the river. I drew a blank at the first 15, but the 16th, Jacobson's. I found the Aurora and the missing Mr. Smith. He was rather worse for liquor. He felt that he wanted it at 8 o'clock sharp. So I grabbed one of my boys, placed him as a sentry, as to wave his handkerchief when they begin.
Planned it all very neatly. But if the affair were in my hands, I would have had a body of police in Jacobson's yard, and the rest of them when they came down.
Which would have been never. The Small was a pretty shrewd fellow.
But why not stick to Smith and so be led to their hiding place?
In that case, I would have wasted my day. I think it is 100 to 1 against Smith knowing where they live. As long as he has good play and liquor, why should he care?
We're coming up to Jacobson's yard, sir.
Yes, I see my sentry at his post, but no sign of a handkerchief yet.
Suppose we go down the stream a short way and lie in wait for them.
I'd certainly 10 to 1 that they do go downstream, but we must not take anything for granted.
Sir, a white flutter over yonder.
Yes, it's your boy. I can see him plainly.
As the man is the Aurora and going like the devil full speed, engineer! By heavens, I shall never forgive myself if they prove to have the news of us.
She is very fast. I doubt we shall catch her.
We shall have to catch her. He bids on Snookus. Give it all she's got. If we burn the boat, we must have them.
I think we gained a little.
Yes, we'll be up on her in several minutes.
Watch out for that board. Turn left, man. Turn left. Right.
She's gotten ahead of us.
Pilot on, men! Pilot on! Smith's flashing again on us. Get on, she's got to me.
Holmes, the savage.
Fire if he raises his hand!
We're almost upon her.
What are you doing, man? You're running aground!
She's making for the southern bank, sir.
Holmes, smallest of ship and is heading inland.
Captain, put us ashore! Quick, men! After him! Any sign of that savage?
No, sir. He fell overboard when the shots rang out.
Most likely at the bottom of the Thames by now.
See here, Watson? We were hardly quick enough with our pistols.
It's one of those murderous thorns.
As he must have shot at us when we fired.
Inspector Jones, the stolen treasure. I believe I found it, sir.
Indeed, Constable. Take the Aurora and escort her and her crew back to Westminster Stairs.
Right away, sir.
You, sir, have a lot to answer for. John Wick Small, I arrest you in the Queen's name.
Your wire. Mrs. Hudson let me in.
I'm glad you have come.
What news have you brought me?
I brought you something better than news. I have brought you a fortune.
Is that the treasure then?
Yes, this is the great Augur treasure. Half of it is yours and half of it is Thaddeus Sholto's. Think of that. There'll be few richer young ladies in England. Isn't it glorious?
If I have it, I owe it to you.
No, not to me, but to Sherlock Holmes. With all the will in the world, I could have never followed up a clue which even taxed his analytical genius. As it was, we nearly lost it at the last moment.
Pray, sit down and tell me about it, Dr. Watson.
Well, since the last time we spoke, Holmes disguised himself as a wharfinger and discovered the Aurora.
He disguised himself?
Yes, he had a big beard, old ratty clothes, and a very convincing stoop. He had Abernathy Jones and I quite fooled.
I wish I could see this.
Well, we engaged Abernathy Jones and went down the Thames in search of the Aurora. When we were just on her, Enderman Savage, the one who killed Sholto, shot one of his poison thorns at us. It narrowly missed us, but he paid the ultimate price and now lays at the bottom of the river. Are you all right, Miss Morstan?
It is nothing. I'm all right again. It was a shock to me to hear I had placed my friends in such horrible peril.
It was nothing. Let's turn to something brighter. There's treasure. What could be brighter than that? I got leave to take it with me, thinking it would interest you to see it first.
It would be of the greatest interest to me. What a pretty box. This is Indian work, I suppose.
Yes, it is Benares handiwork.
The box alone must be of some value. Where's the key?
A small through it into the Thames. We must force it open. Cole!
The treasure is lost.
Thank God.
Why do you say that?
Because you are within my reach again. Because I love you, Mary, as ever a man loved a woman. Because these riches, this treasure, sealed my lips. I didn't want you to think that my only interest lay in the treasure. And now that it is gone, I can tell you how I love you. And that is why I say, thank God.
And I say, thank God too.
Over there, Constable.
Who is this then, Doctor?
Miss Morstan, this is Jonathan Small, who has caused so much trouble this evening.
Morstan, you wouldn't be the captain's daughter.
I am.
I'm very sorry for the fate of your father. He was a good man, and I had no quarrel with him.
It's good of you to say so. Doctor, can you please show me out? I do not wish to stay here.
Certainly. Excuse us, Holmes. I shall be right back.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I'm very grateful to have some closure and to know what became of my unfortunate father.
Indeed, Miss Morstan. Bye. Jonathan Small. I am sorry that it has come to this.
As am I, sir. I don't believe I can swing over the job. I give you my word on the book that I did not raise a hand against young Mr. Sholto. It was that hellhound Tommy that shot me with one of his cursed darts. I had no part in it. I vaulted with the slack end of a rope for it, but it was done and could not be undone.
How could you expect so small and weak a man as the stronger fellow to overpower Mr. Sholto and hold him while you were climbing the rope?
You seem to know about as much as you were in the room, sir. Truth be told, I had hoped to find the room empty. I had known his habits fairly well, and that was usually when he went down for supper.
Well, you are under the charge of Mr. Abernathy Jones of Scotland Yard.
That I, who should have fair claim to £500,000 sterling, should spend the first half of my life building breakwaters at Adam, and I'd like to spend the last half digging ditches at Dartmoor. It was an evil day when first I heard of the Ogre treasure, which has brought nothing but a curse upon the men who owned it. How did you come into this treasure? I was stationed at the Ogre fort with 2 Sikh troops under my command. Muhammad Singh and Abdullah Khan. It was they who brought me into a pact with Dost Akbar. We made a pact and we sealed it with the sign of 4. You see, a Raja in the northern province has sent half of his treasure south when trouble broke out by an iron box, using a trusted servant disguised as a merchant. My associates and I murdered the servant and took the treasure for ourselves. It was that murder that landed us at Adamon, but we had secreted the treasure away in a deserted part of the Ogre fort.
On which then you detailed the map for Captain Morrison.
He and Major Sholto had said they'd get us out of Port Blair if we shared the treasure with them. We gave them a map, and Sholto took the treasure, abandoned Morstan, and the rest of us there to rot.
So Morstan didn't betray you?
No, he was a decent enough man, above board his own way. He had a weak heart and spent quite a lot of time in the dispensary. I worked there when my leg was too weak for digging. It was Sholto that had taken all the treasure. If I had come across Sholto, I'd have finished him with a light heart.
Is Port Blair where you met Tonga?
As I said, I worked in the dispensary there quite often. One day, a convict gang brought in a young islander who was sick near the point of death. He had gone to some lonely place to die. I took him under my wing, though he was as venomous as a young snake, and after a couple months, I got him all right.
That would explain his devotion to you.
Tonga was very fond of me. Turns out he was an excellent boat and had a very roomy canoe of his own. It was then I saw my chance of escape. There was only one guard in the bathing night we left. Tonga wanted to shoot him with his blowpipe, but I knocked him unconscious with my crutch. Fair and true was young Tonga. No man ever had a more faithful mate.
I had hoped that he had lost all of his darts, yet he managed to shoot one out to send boat.
He had lost his supply, but he still had the one he kept in his blowpipe at all times.
Of course, I had not thought of that.
Quite the family party. Well, I think that we may all congratulate each other. I must say, Holmes, you cut it rather fine. It was all we could do to overhaul her.
I certainly did not know the Aurora was such a clipper.
This says she's one of the fastest launches on the river, and if you'd had another man to help, we should never have caught her. He swears he knew nothing of the Norwood business.
Neither did he. Not a word. We told him nothing and paid him well.
Then we shall see no harm come to him. We can be quick in catching our men, and are not so quick in condemning them.
Well, Watson, how did Miss Morstan take to seeing the treasure?
She's taking it rather well. Being that it's all gone.
This is your doing, Small.
I have put the treasure where no man can have it. If I can't have the treasure, I should take good care that no other man does. No living man has right to this treasure unless the 3 men in the adamant convict barracks and myself. It has been the sign of 4 with us always. I do with the treasure as they would have me do. I threw it in the Thames. You'll find the treasure where the key and little Tonga are.
You're deceiving us, Small. It would have been easier for you to have thrown the box and all.
Easier for me to throw and easier for you to recover. The man wasn't smart enough to hunt me down, is smart enough to pick an iron box from the bottom of the river.
It's a very serious matter, Small. If you would have helped justice instead of thwarting it this way, you would have had a better chance at your trial.
Justice, a pretty justice. Whose treasure is this if not mine? Look how I earned it. 20 years in the hot sun, slaving under mangrove trees, all night locked up in filthy convict huts, bitten by mosquitoes and racked with fever. That is how I earned the Ogre treasure, and you talk to me of justice?
Well, Rose, if you've had your questions answered, we shall be going.
Every bit satisfied.
Good night, gentlemen. Both. You first, Small.
Well, There's the end of our little drama. I fear this is the first and last investigation in which I have a chance of studying your methods.
What do you mean?
Miss Morstan has done me the honor of accepting me as a husband and prospective.
I feared as much. I'm sorry, but I cannot congratulate you.
I'm a little hurt. Do you have any reason to be dissatisfied with my choice?
No, not at all. She's one of the most charming young ladies I have ever met. She might be most useful in cases that we've been working on. Witness the way that she preserved the Arbor plan amongst all the other papers of her father's. She had a decided genius that way. But love is an emotional thing. Whatever is emotional is opposed to that true, cold reasoning which I have placed above all things. I shall never marry myself, lest I bias my judgment.
I trust my judgment can survive the ordeal. But you look weary.
Yes, the reaction is already upon me. I shall be as limp as a rat for a week.
Strange how terms in which another man I would call laziness alternates with your fits of splendid energy and vigor.
I have the makings of me as a very fine loafer. At least Jones finally has the right man.
Holmes, your marriage should be publicly recognized. It will not do for you to let Scotland Yard take all the credit for it. You should publish an account of the case. If you don't, I will for you.
Do as you will.
I believe I will. Still, the division seems rather unfair. You've done all the work in this business. I get a wife out of it. Jones gets the credit. Pray, what remains for you?
For me, my dear Dr. Watson, there is always the next case.